Good, thank you. I hereby call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Tuxedo Union Free School District on Thursday, April 20th, 2023. I'm Joe Rickard. You see, I have a mask on. I've been released because of, I'm in an isolation because of COVID. Doctor released me, but she said just for purposes or extra protection to wear the mask. That's why I'm wearing it. You notice the board members all spread out. They don't quite trust the I guess, but hopefully you'll be able to hear me. So let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Colgan, can you take the roll, please?
Joe Rickard,
Here?
Alyssa Hornick.
No, she's not.
Oh, okay. Kimberly Britland. Here. Dan Captrapone.
Here.
Bill Gibbons.
Here.
Gary Hebner.
Here.
And Heather Kitty. Here. I apologize.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope. Okay, thank you. We'll now move into the public comment section of the meeting. If any members of the public who would like to speak, this would be a good time to do it. Please raise your hands. Okay, I don't see any hands over there, so I think we'll move on. At this time, on behalf of all of us on the Tuxedo Union Free District Board of Education, we are proud to acknowledge two very special individuals that are here tonight. This year's valedictorian and salutatorian of the class of 2023. The salutatorian for the class of 2023 is Parker Gibbons. Parker, come forward. Come forward, and that we may present you with the salutatorian's label pin. And we have a picture. Anybody take a picture of this? All right. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Congratulations, Parker. Very good. Now, the valedictorian for the class of 2023 was Mario Giannis. Mario, please come forward so that we may present you with your valedictorian lapel pin. Congratulations, Nariel. We are very proud of both of you and all your accomplishments and wish your continued success beyond high school. Thanks for being here tonight, too. Thank you. Tonight, tonight we're going to do the budget or the student presentation first?
I'll do the student presentation first.
All right, so tonight, would you introduce the presentation?
Absolutely.
You should probably tell them that they can go if they don't want to stay.
So unless you guys want to stay for a presentation on the schedule and the budget, which are both exciting, and I know the principal of the day is over there. There are two of them, actually. Unless you're interested in seeing the budget any more than you did in my office, you guys are welcome to go enjoy the rest of this beautiful evening. Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations.
The budget will be fun. I don't know why they don't want to stick around.
You know, Bill, anytime you want to clear a room, just say there's a budget meeting, you know? Always guaranteed to work.
They could probably give the presentation on the schedule, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
All right,
Okay.
who's speaking?
Okay, so next we have, the board had requested a follow-up on our master schedule process and how the schedule went. A series of questions were asked, so I asked both Dr. Cusin to come in, I also asked our guidance counselor, she couldn't make it tonight, and I have also our athletic director and also the architect of the schedule, Mr. Marco Margata. Marco, do you want to join us up front as well? So they're going to be presenting on the schedule, and take it away, Dr. Cusin, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
You hear me? Okay, good. First of all, thank you for having me back. It's been 12 months since I made that presentation. Doesn't seem like 12 months. They certainly went by fast, but wait till you see all that we accomplished this past year. And I have a PowerPoint presentation to give you some details of what took place. So we're calling it Revamping the Master Schedule, a progress report a year later. We're going to give ourselves a report card, and I'm going to take you step by step through what we accomplished this past year. There's no I in team. This was not an idea over here. This was a TEAM effort. And I want to thank the administration, the union, and the scheduling committee, coupled with community input, which we received from day one. I'll mention specific names: Renee Bloom, Marco, Christine, Roy, Tom Riley, Amanda Sales, Dolores, Jeff, and of course myself. We're working in tandem here to make what you're about to hear happen. So I thank all those people for their support. This was not an idea. And we'll get started right away. But we're going to start with a riddle. And you're going to see where I'm going with this. You're going to say, why is this guy doing this? But I'm going to start with a riddle first. This came from a college class, a garden of misinformation. And again, you're going to ask me, why is he reading this up? You'll see in a moment. Here are some facts that I learned from my college students. So see if you get the answers to these questions. Don't run too fast. Who is Walter Cronkite? This is the answer I got. He was the first person to walk on the moon. Number two, who is Bernie Madoff? He was the president of General Motors. These are from college students. Number three, who is Yasser Arafat? He was the prime minister of Israel. Wow. The next one's the best one. Who is Sarah Palin? You ready for this one? The first woman Supreme Court justice. I wish I could be there with you. Now here's the key question, and now it gets serious for a minute. Who is Pierre? Pierre is an exchange student from France. And what does all of this mean? Let me explain.
In Dr.
Students in my
Cusin's class.
gave those answers. Pierre is from Paris. He knew all the answers to those questions, and the students looked to him. Why? Because the European, the Parisian, French education is so much more intense than ours. And we laugh, but it's a sad story. And I've seen this through the years, the diminution of American standards in education, the lack of rigor. And now you see where I'm going with all of this. Yeah. Common denominator to all of these is academic rigor. And if I look at my notes, if you look at the notes you gave me last year when I first presented, that's the term that I heard again and again and again, academic rigor. And it's lacking, not talking about Tuxedo now, I'm talking about American schools. They don't have study halls, they don't have shortened days, they don't have shortened years. They mean business when they go to school. And that's what we tried to do with the master schedule that we're going to present to you tonight, as I say, as a team. These were the objectives. And I'm going to get back to all of them in a minute with specifics and even some statistics and data. This is what you said to me last year when we met. Academic rigor, no wasteful study halls, and there's an asterisk on that because we reached a compromise. Some parents requested them, some students requested them, so we respected those requests. But no longer were they built in for all students, because personally, to me, this is the anathema of the schedule. A total waste of time. But we did respect those requests where it was a parent option. Increased elective opportunities you asked for, senior options for full schedules, all of this with the academic rigor in mind, adhering to the teacher contract as we overhaul the schedule, reduced teacher preps each day, a sense of community, and a compatibility between the two buildings in terms of schedules. These were some of the priorities you asked for. I'm going to get to more specifics as we move through the presentation. And yes, there was resistance, I think, because I've said this time and time, and Jeff agrees with me completely. We were the best kept secret. A dynamite course catalog to sell the excellence of Tuxedo, and you're going to see that if you haven't already seen it in a few minutes. So these are the objectives that I set out to do with the team as we approach revamping the master schedule. It's a year later. It's a work in progress. As you're going to see, We didn't accomplish everything, but we accomplished a heck of a lot, and we go piece by piece as we work through the objectives. Here we go. I'm going to go nice and slowly. Here's the list, and then I'm going to back them up with some numbers after I'm through. Develop a 9-period day. Add a 10th period flex period, which enables increased elective opportunities. And the next one gets a star, and let me explain why there's an asterisk. When I mentioned this last year, I said this is a long-range goal, one of my pet projects, arena scheduling by exception, which simply means students build their own schedule. In short, I mean, I can talk for this about 2 hours about it. There are students, guess what? You can do the sooner than later. My consistent long periods, which is number 1 on my head, because I shared with you last year what other districts are doing in terms of time, more minutes per period. More minutes. That's what it's for. Eliminate study halls, now a double asterisk. Second asterisk, again, not eliminate, but reduce, and I break this statistics for you. 19, 20, 39.28%, almost 40%. That 9%. So we on our way, I would say to some bolstering the senior year, and I have to. It's a universal problem in the scheduling workshop that I run in school districts. I have one slide about the senior year. It's the I'm looking for a nice word. It's the stepping stone that we fear because many students have one foot out the door. We wanted to build up the senior year, and so students would take it more seriously. Rotating the periods to break what we call the lockstep. Every day math is first period. Every day English is second period. So that was one of the goals we accomplished. Ensure a schedule which is compatible with GGM because there's considerable shared staff. Decrease the number of teacher preparations. On this one, more work is needed. And we know it's a tough challenge, and I have to thank the teachers for the union for their cooperation and understanding. When you have a small high school and you only have one section of many courses, you can't help but increase the number of different courses teachers teach by definition. So we're trying to reduce. We have more work to do on this, but please understand that's a tough one. That's one of the downsides of a small school. The advantages far outweigh the disadvantages, but that's one of the problems that you do have to deal with it. I hope lay people understand what that means. In a large school, you may have 5 sections, 10 sections of a course, and a teacher can teach 3 English 9s and 2 English 10s, 2 preps. But when you have just one of each preparation, one of each course, that's the challenge. Respect the teacher contract, which we certainly did. Establish advisories. And again, a triple star here because we need some explanation. We launched this, but the teachers want more professional development, more training on how to do this. And this is a universal concern, folks, on advisories. When I started this in my own school years ago when I was principal, one of the best teachers said to me, I'm a teacher, not a social worker. What do? I don't know how to do this. And we need to do more work on using the advisories to best advantage. Provide a sense of community, and that was via the new Interact Club, which made that possible. And create a course catalog, which I've referred to before, to sell, and I'm going to use that word, to sell Tuxedo's excellence. It's an incredible school. I'm a newcomer here, and it's amazing. And Jeff kind of coined an expression which will come up again later on, that we're offering a private school education in a public school setting, and we've got to let the world know what we're doing. And there is this absolutely beautifully done course catalog. Marco and the whole team that put this together, kudos to you. It's just a beautiful document. And what I've suggested that this be placed in the real estate offices. From my own experience, that's the best place to sell your school system. Because when parents come looking for prospective homes, the first thing they want to know about is schools. I live in Merrick, Long Island, and the house prices have gone through the roof here. The house across the street from me, fasten your seatbelts, $1.05 million, because people ask about the Merrick schools, which are phenomenal, like your schools. But it can't be the best kept secret. You got to get the word out. And your catalog, your program of studies, is the best way to tell the world what's going on in Tuxedo. A few statistics. This is from a faculty poll. Do you like the schedule? This is what came in, 64.3, almost 2/3 yes. No, 35.7. We want to get that. I said this is a work in progress. We want to increase that to even greater, but still it's almost 2 to 1 right now. So obviously the staff, the faculty likes the changes that we are making. What the teachers had to say, here are some of the things they liked and didn't like. They liked the longer periods. They liked the period rotation, again, breaking lockstep. And then we call the dropout, where a class doesn't meet once a week to enable longer periods, more instructional time. The one thing that came up in the surveys that were compiled, still too many preparations, but I explained how that's a tough nut to crack. You've got to bear with us. We're going to see what we can do about that. It's understandable in a small school. Oh, next. Okay, we asked the students too some questions. Do you like the new schedule? Red is yes, blue is no in the first one. Do you like the new schedule? Look at that number. 80.5% said yes, 19.5% said no. Well, it's quite a majority in favor of the new schedule. Look at this one down below. Do you believe we offer all the classes you would like to take? Once again, we have a huge number over there of 63.3% saying yes, and a much smaller number saying no, and a handful saying I don't know. Again, I'm going to keep repeating that phrase. It's a work in progress. We're going to make it even better. We could stop now, but that's not what we want to do. About those study goals, I found this graphic. You can't beat this graphic. You got to admit. This is a study goal. Waste of time. When I do my scheduling workshop, I get all the reasons why I don't like study goals. And I could go through the long list. Reading around bullying, waste of time, slows everybody down. So many reasons. Regarding study goals, here's some other more specific numbers. The percentage of students with study goals has decreased from 39.28 in school year 2019 to 25%, the figure I gave before, in 2022-23. That's quite a drop. Those who were assigned study goals had that because the student or parent request. And remember last year's board meeting, there was some pushback from people who did not want us to abolish study goals completely. Although many people felt we should, this was the compromise position. So parents feel the kids need some downtime, some time in school to complete homework, their assignments. They were built in, but by request. And number 3 is the big one. We didn't use study halls as gap fillers, which some districts do, because they don't have enough staff, and they give the kids end-to-end schedules. There are lots of holes in them, so they plug in study halls. And that was a major objection, both at the board meeting, and then when some of you came up to me afterwards and talked to me about what you want most. That's the one was the big seller. Get rid of your study halls. So looking back, Rome wasn't built in a day. We're going to continue to work until all the goals is achieved. I have to say, I'm amazed at how much the team got done this year. If you look at that list that I went through item by item by item. But we don't want to stop here. We don't want to stop here. The operative word is collaborative. Great, I love the picture. I love the picture that goes with this. Everybody's working together. So we got input from the community, from the board, from the administration, union, rank and file teachers, guidance. Everybody's giving us their views, and we're trying to incorporate it into a master schedule that serves everybody. And looking forward, this is conquering. I found this graphic to go with it, so I thought it was appropriate. We've accomplished a tremendous amount of change during 1 year. I never thought we'd get this much done. I've been to many districts. I've been around the block a few times. But we moved at a very rapid pace this year and got a heck of a lot done. But we've only just begun. More is to come. We acknowledge the things that need improvement, and we'll tackle them. But considering it's 12 months, I think we've come closer and closer to the schedule that everybody wants. And here's the phrase that Jeff's used, private school education, but in a public setting. And that's what we're going for. We're taking advantage of the fact that it's small, and we're capitalizing on the fact that there are things we can do that other districts can't do. So, if anybody has any questions after today or for the future, I gave you this before. Just call me Steve. I have my titles. Here's my email address. If you want to follow up, one-on-one, please don't hesitate. sk3015@aol.com. And that completes my presentation.
So Steve was the expert that we brought in to help us. Marco is, every school district, they have what's called an architect of the schedule, and then there's a schedule builder. Marco's the architect of the schedule, and Chris Oliva is the builder of the schedule. So they work hand in glove to get this together. And
Day after day, we were working together. I couldn't ask for better teammates.
yes, and Steve is expert in scheduling. So we think that and the whole team worked together great to put this together. Does anybody have any questions about the project and how it went and results? Sure, Dan, go ahead.
Just one question. I know when we
Dan,
talked.
if you don't mind, can you just pull the mic, because I get yelled at all the time by the public.
When we spoke last year about the study hall issue, I know that we wanted to make sure that if the parents requested it, that it would be inserted. I don't remember having a student request for a study hall.
It required a parent approval, is that right, Mr. Reese went home, but yes, it required a parent approval to get that through, yeah.
So you needed both,
Oh, yeah,
not just the student.
absolutely,
Okay.
right.
The way it was
Sometimes-
listed on the
Dan,
slide, it
sometimes
looked
the
like the
parent would
students.
say, you know what, he's overwhelmed, he's overworked, she's overwhelmed, I want the kid to have that. Other times, the student would say, I want the time, but we still required the parent to give an approval of that, so.
Yep, that's correct.
Any other questions?
Yes, Marco and Steve, thanks for the leadership on this, we appreciate it. Is it only one thing that you'd want to change, like, what's the top of the list to change for next year?
Steve, I'll answer this. So that's kind of hard to say in terms of, because if you think about what we did, and Steve knows this very well, it's all about trade-offs with the schedule, because obviously if you want to make an adjustment, you got to see how that's going to affect other things in the schedule. So to answer that question might kind of throw a monkey wrench in everything else that we have prepared. So we'd have to weigh all the options before we said, okay, if we want to, make lunch periods, in a different spot in the day, we'd have to see how that would affect everything else. So as much as we want to make suggestions, we have to be very delicate because we don't want to blow up the whole schedule and have to start from scratch again. So, Steve, would you agree?
To me, the most important thing is instructional time. I shared this story last year, very quickly, very quickly. I've seen every schedule imaginable. I'm glad the 37th period has gone the way of the Edsel. If any of you remember the Edsel. But one Middle Atlantic State superintendent says, forget the bells and whistles. I want more time in the classroom. Give me 7 55-minute periods. I just want the kids engaged in instruction. And that's what we're moving to. The rigor, I told that story at the beginning. It was humorous. I hope you realize it made a point. I want to see rigor in American education again. And in my travels, I'm seeing a lot of waste of time. Our team has moved away from that. And again, it's a work in progress, but that's the direction I want to see more of that. And if we can do something on the teacher preps, that's a tough nut to crack, as I said, but we're going to try to do that too. And number 3 would be more work on the advisories.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, Steve, I'll just jump in and say, again, the teacher preps, that we are really working our teachers to the max. And that's because of our size. And at some point, there's just so long they can do this for. So when the farms comes in and we expand, it'll be a lot better for all the teachers. It'll lessen it, because even though they have less kids in the classroom, they still have to prepare the entire curriculum as if the classroom was full. So it's a lot of work. So I'd say that's number one, and eventually when we get more kids, adding other streams of, for example, a business tract you had mentioned, right, Steve? That's one of them?
That's my pet project.
Yeah,
I want to
yeah.
see a business elective. Business
Right.
electives, plural.
So those are things, but I think that'll come in time with growth. There's nothing we can do about it right now.
Remember what I said, Rome wasn't, you saw that slide, Rome wasn't built in a day. But boy, we built a lot this past year, and there's more to add on. My pet concern is business education. That's what, yes, kids today, what are they going for? Well, maybe they'll say business, and we need to plug that in at some point.
Yes, sir.
Steve, quick question on the terms that you used, breaking the lockstep and period rotation. Can you just confirm what the benefits are to those? And is it the same benefit for the students and the teachers? Or is it different?
Because I remember kids complain, I have math every day for a week, math student. It eases the boredom, it makes school more exciting and interesting, and it breaks that 180 days more and more and more.
Is that for the students or the teachers or both?
More for the students. Our teachers, the teachers here are so professional. I mean, they'll do what they have to do. They do it. I would say more for the students.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I'm going to just give one quick example. I was a terrible science student. That was my weak spot. That's a whole other story, but geology, a rock was a rock. But if I had science first period in the morning for 180 days, I would be in deeper trouble than I was. It facilitates the learning. So we normally have that subject in the
Thank you.
But Steve, let me just also add this too, the added benefit from the teacher side of it. Each day, because one drops out. So because they have more preps in general, if they have one class that drops out, they don't have to prep for that class that day, and that gives them more of a flexibility to kind of prepare the next day and have a day off from that.
Very important point. Thank you, Marco. That's very important to know. That's one way we solve the teacher, number of preps. But again, I mean, not to harp on it, but I'm just thrilled about the length of the periods.
That's good, very good, good answer.
Can I ask, so in the presentation, I appreciate the feedback on whether students and teachers like the new schedule. I think that's really important. But the other part is, how are we measuring the results of the increased academic rigor?
So I was asking that as well, Heather, and we're going to look at certain things. It's going to be hard, but we're going to try to see, was there any impact on test results? Certain things like, even you can potentially look at correlations between absenteeism, homework completion, are they getting their homework done? Classes, or I was doing the homework in study halls, and now I don't want to go home and do my homework. So some of the things that we might want to look at going forward. But I don't know that we can do that yet. But I had spoken to Marco and Chris about doing a little bit more analysis about that. So this isn't over. Yep. This is something that's a work in progress, and as we hopefully grow and Tuxedo Farms comes in, we'll make it more robust.
Is there a correlation between time in the classroom, instruction time, and student performance?
Generally, yes.
So there's
And number of days in class, yes. The more instructional time students have, the better they generally do. And Steve brought that up. He said a lot of the other countries have longer school years. I think, Steve, isn't it correct? I think we have one of the shortest school years in the industrial world. 180 days were required.
Those big breaks, well, it's the old agricultural schedule, to be free in the summer. That I remember from my graduate courses, why that's the case, having those 2 months off in the regression. Again, that's not a Tuxedo problem. I'm going to stress that. We're not talking about Tuxedo. That's an American education problem.
Yeah.
There's a lot of loss when you have two and a half months off.
Yep, many of the things that are structural in the American educational system were actually set in motion back in 1890 with a group called the Committee of 10. And so our school year, the structure of elementary and high school and all that, a lot of that stuff is from 1890. So we're trying to update. Other questions?
Well, let me just also add this too. I don't know if this is 100% in line with your question, but one of the things that lack of study halls does and more electives does is gives the kids a more diverse transcript once they graduate. So they'll graduate with more courses under their transcript as opposed to just having it filled with a study hall.
That's great. Thank you. So presumably that will make our students more competitive when they apply to college.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Colleges look at the courses study kids take. The old saying was, just a GPA, grade point average. No, that's not as important. Question: would you have a kid who has a 99 average, a 99 GPA, or whatever, an A, and as opposed to somebody who's taking more advanced placement courses or more rigorous full schedules with a 92 average? And the colleges are saying they're looking at the courses study. So Mark was right. That's another plus for our schedule in terms of what the kids have on the transcript.
By the way, we have 184 days here at Tuxedo, just so everyone knows. Other questions?
Thanks.
We're good?
Thank you.
Marco, thank you. Steve, thank you.
You're welcome.
There's a problem with the feed. I'm going to shut down OBS real quick and then turn it back on. It may disrupt everything, but right now, everyone only sees a frozen image of Steve.
Okay, so we'll take a few minutes then to,
Yes.
okay,
Let's take a few minutes.
sure.
Can the public hear us now?
They're working that right now. They did hear everything, Joe. It's that the screen was frozen, so they want to reboot.
All right.
We're good? Okay.
Thank you, we're back.
So the next thing we have on the agenda is our budget adoption. Now, I just wanted to say a couple of words before Anthony starts. School districts had historically looked at tax rates in the past, and then they got away from it, and they were pretty much putting out their only tax levy information. And we've been pretty much doing the same thing, except last year we had an anomaly on a couple of properties. And this year, I know the board wanted to get as much information about the tax rate as we could. So we have been going all along on the tax levy and not piercing the cap and going at 3.1. And then we've spoken to the audit committee or the finance committee. They said, please get us as close information as we can on the tax rate. The reason that school districts got away from doing the tax rate is the schedule, New York State schedule for the timeline for equalization and assessments does not line up when we have to adopt our budgets. So it doesn't lend itself for that. First, the tentative assessment roll is not due until May 1st. Okay, we have to adopt tonight, April 20th, so that's weeks away. After that date, residents file grievances and the Board of Assessment Review denies or approves the filed appeals. After this process is complete, the final assessment roll is completed on July 1st. Second, in late January, early February, the State Office of Real Property Tax Services, ORPS as they're known, sends the stratified statistical analyses to the assessors for their review. Based upon this information, the local assessors estimate what's called the level of assessment, or the LOA. ORPS finalizes these equalization rates anywhere between May and August. These dates are long after the school districts are required to adopt their budget. So this year, we really browbeat the assessors. I'm sorry that we did that, but because you wanted to get as much information about tax rate, and we were hoping that it would be as close to the levy, but it wasn't. So a 3.1% levy was going to get us just under a 5% tax rate, and the board had suggested that that might be a little too much for the community to bear. So this week, when we got those numbers from the assessors, we've been working diligently morning, noon, and night, trying to identify areas that we might reduce the budget in such a way that there's no impact on educational program, yet we can bring in a more affordable budget. So, we might be sliding in just under the wire here, but Anthony's going to show you some of the reductions and some of the revenue enhancements that we had to do to get this where they wanted to do it. I want to thank the assessors. This was a Herculean effort on their part. They did get us their numbers. These numbers can still be altered slightly. If you remember last year, we had said that the tax rate would come in at 0.98, and actually it came in a little less than that, because there will be adjustments that we just at this point in time we can't tell, but we're giving you the latest information and the best information that we are able to provide. So,
And when you say assessors, why don't you explain it? You have
so we have two assessors because in the Tuxedo Union Free School District, we're largely in the town of Tuxedo, and Tuxedo also has a portion that goes to Monroe Woodbury, but our school district is comprised mostly of Tuxedo, and there's a sliver that goes to Warwick. So we have to deal with both the Tuxedo assessor and the Warwick assessor, and we have to deal with an equalization rate that shifts the amount of taxes between the two taxing jurisdictions. So I want to thank the assessors and everybody on the team, Anthony, who put this budget together, and the finance committee, who spent hours on the phone with us going over these budgets. I think that, even though we had to make these reductions, and we have some revenue enhancements as well, this is both a budget that's responsible to the taxpayer while continuing Tuxedo on its road to the top 100. And with that, I want to introduce our business official, Mr. Anthony Kashara, who's going to go over the budget, hopefully for the board's adoption tonight.
Good evening, and thanks for that introduction, Jeff, and also that background. We're going to, again, back to tax levy and tax rate without beating it too hard. There's a tax cap is all about the tax levy. That's saying how much money can be raised through property taxes in the district. How much individuals pay is dependent upon a number of issues. The total wealth, like if everyone, if we had less wealth to tax on, then everybody would have to pay more. We're hoping through Tuxedo Farms, as it comes on, we're going to have more wealth, which is going to inure to the benefit of all taxpayers, and we'll be able to spend $1 while individuals will only see an increase of 50 cents kind of thing, to use an analogy. So that's kind of, the tax cap, just kind of remember, the tax cap and what's set by the state is the tax levy, partly because the tax rate is unknowable, even now it's estimated, and also they know, and we'll even talk a little bit about the yearly variations, and how one year the rate could go up, the next year the rate could go down, but the levy is really what the schools need to operate year to year, and that should be fairly consistent and should be capped, and that's what the legislature has done with the governor. Which one? Yeah. Okay. So when we got the latest information from the assessors, the impact, there were 2 properties in Warwick that were known as what was pro rata last year, was $350,000. So these were properties during, let me get my year straight, the 21-22 school year. They went from tax exempt to taxable during the year. So the new owners had to pay a tax for that period of time, just like right now if you bought a home and somebody had a senior exemption and you don't, you would then pay a little bit more because they're still part of the tax year that now we have a new owner. In this case, it went from a tax exempt owner to a taxable owner. That was $350,000. Obviously, that's a one-shot. So when we did the tax rate, we were able to factor that, we have to legally factor that $350,000 in. That's why last year there was a minus 3% tax rate in Warwick and a 0.6% tax rate increase in the town of Tuxedo. That one shot is now gone, but yet our rate was still based on that $340,000. So we were hoping we were going to get enough assessments to eat up a good chunk of that. It ate up maybe about half of it. It didn't eat up enough of it. So we did get 1.5% more wealth to tax on, but that loss of $340,000 on those 2 properties, we were still set back. So we had a gap of about $190,000 to bring in the budget still at a 3.1, and again, back to tax rate. Tax levy, we didn't increase our tax levy at all, but the rate went up because we had to tax more each individual to come up with the same 3.1%. So we knew that was not our plan, not our goal, and also not politically viable. And we went back, and as Jeff said, tried to find things as far away from the classroom as we could. And I think we did a pretty decent job. Extra revenues, we did have to correct, a new employee. We had a few more dollars was needed from what was in the budget. But then we went through and found $197,000 of items that were negatives. Again, as far away from the classroom as we could. We're going to actually have more UPK students next year. So that minus $32,400 is really that the state's going to help us pay for that UPK program. And I believe this is based on 19 students for next year. There's currently 1 teacher and 2 aides in that class. Last week when Paul Caputo was discussing the technology plan, he was asked if you had to do with something else, and he said wait a year on the teacher computers. So that's what we did there. Since it's paid over 5 years, that was $5,000 a year. So instead of $35,000 a year, it's going to be $30,000. The firewall, very important, but we feel we can pay for that this year. So it's a one-shot. We're going to pay it this year, and it'll be out of the budget, and it won't have a negative effect because it's not like every year you got to buy a firewall. Co-curricular activities was kind of mentioned by the board, with the reality is, again, a smaller class, smaller number of students. With the number of offerings, we'd almost be cannibalizing, one club would be cannibalizing another. And the feeling is maybe we do half clubs, half time, or bring clubs together like engineering and robotics, I guess would be a natural marriage. So again, we feel this is a reduction, but some of it would have come upon anyway because we can't always offer the clubs that we budget for, but we're kind of taking that on the front end. Took away some administrative salaries for athletics, again, not reducing the number of teams, non-teaching coaching salaries. Some of that is supervisory at games and things like that, scorekeepers. But again, we're trying in that area not to be reducing the number of actual sports teams. Actually, we're trying to do more with other districts like Suffern and maybe TPS eventually. A little bit is taken off the athletic events and clinics, but again, the positive is we are going to have a summer program that we never had before. Instead of $10,000, it'll be $8,750. Transfer to capital. Again, in a perfect world, you're putting money aside for your long-term capital needs. But the community was supportive on a $2 million bond issue, or bond, excuse me, $2 million capital reserve, which we now have access to and we can spend. And also we're looking for the ability to save money over the next 10 years and put it into our facilities also. So we feel we'll still get what we need done. It may take us a little longer, and we would like to eventually put money in the annual budget, but this was not the year that we could bring that forward. We're going through you BOCES. We already have identified cuts. We just got to ask a few more questions. So we've basically just taken $20,000 off of our total BOCES contract. And again, it's not going to be the OC-Ed slots. Fact is, we do feel that any child who wants to have OC-Ed will have it. And obviously our other big BOCES cost is special ed. It's not going to have any effect on that. These are more management services that we will find another way to do. And then we just kind of went line by line, nickeled and dimed, and found another $6,000. Why did we do that? We did that to bring the budget, the tax rate, back to that 3.1 figure that we were talking about all the way through. Then we went a step further. We actually added 20, we have reserves. We have reserve fund balance of about $1 million. And on your property tax report card tonight, you'll see the reserves we still have. We don't have a tax cert reserve, unfortunately, because that was used to settle a tax case with the golf course. So that reserve has been depleted, but we still have $1 million in reserved fund balance. This is not subject to the 4% limit. And I think it's prudent that a district has reserves, things like repair reserves. And we had money in an unemployment reserve and a workers' comp reserve. We had enough in the workers' comp reserve for almost 2 years of workers' comp bills. We're taking $25,000 of the $200,000 as a revenue, and we'll obviously use it to reduce our workers' comp expense. The hope is, since we've reduced the number of bus drivers, our workers' comp bill is going to go lower over time anyway, because it's kind of a 5-year historical. So we feel we'll take this reserve, it's like a peak, and hopefully we won't need to do that kind of money each year to still keep the same workers' comp net effect on our budget. So again, we tried to do things that weren't going to mortgage the future, things we were going to regret next year because it would snap back. I think we pretty much were able to find those things, and obviously we kept it as far away from the classroom as we could. So with those changes, here's a budget calendar, but we kind of all lived through that. We've been kind of working at this since December, and the board, you know, since really early February. Yeah.
I'm on the Zoom.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay.
Oh, Steve?
Oh.
Steve, you got to go on mute.
Feel free to pick this up at any time. It's scintillating, I know. It's scintillating stuff.
I thought those were the voices in my head again.
So if you remember, back at the last meeting, we were looking at a spending increase of 6%, a little over 6%. Obviously, with these cuts, we're now at 4.7% on that front. And we did bring the tax rate in Tuxedo down to 2.86%. But please look at that levy. We're now only increasing the amount we raise by $152,000, 1.27%. And again, if you remember that first meeting, we're not getting any state aid increase of any note. that, all our neighbors are really kind of flush, for lack of a better word, and really able to, to look at tax levy reduction. We're getting $18,000 on foundation aid. So that was 3.1%. A week ago, it's 1.27%. That's the money we're actually raising from the taxes. The impact, again, we would like to consider it over over the last 6 years, by the way, the tax rate here is less than 3.5%, even including this tax rate increase in Tuxedo. And over the last 2 years, again, it was 0.6 last year. So everyone, wants to keep these numbers as low as possible, and we all appreciate the burden that it brings. So the Proposition 1 is the adopted budget, not to exceed $14,620,000 is the way it will read, 629. There's a property tax report card that speaks not to tax rate, interestingly. Again, the state just talks tax levy. It'll show that our cap could have been 3.1, but we're coming in at 1.27. That's the capital reserve note that our spending authorization that actually the board has approved to go in front of the voters, but just as a reminder, that'll be what the voters see. There'll be 2 propositions in addition to the board election. And here we get into the tax rate impact. Go ahead.
Prop 2 is at no cost to the taxpayer.
Right.
Anthony, right?
Yeah,
We want to stress that.
Right. What that's allowing us to do is basically, as time goes on, hopefully in good years when there's a little bit more fund balance, we can put money aside for these purposes, and then fund our capital. Gives us 10 years, up to $3 million. Doesn't require it. If the money's not there, then after 10 years, the authority is done, and whatever is there is there. Obviously, when you get right down to it, everybody's like, what does this cost me? And you could see here again, unfortunately, the difference between the tax levy and the tax rate. Tax rate is going up 2.8%. That means people's tax bills are going to go up 2.8%. And what the impact of that on Tuxedo is $214, Warwick, $529. I do want to point out, most of our property in Warwick is Palisades Interstate Park businesses. There are about 2 dozen, when I looked at it, what looked like homeowners there, but it's a number of that ilk, and not making light of it. I'm just giving you kind of a piece of what that Warwick piece is, primarily Palisades Interstate Park and businesses. And I did put in bold on the bottom, which is hard to see, but last year it was 0.6 in Tuxedo and minus 3.1 in Warwick. That's the yearly fluctuation that you get with a tax rate. We think, obviously, that those properties that were tax exempt became taxable. That's going to happen once in a dozen years. Normally, the tax rate is in line or less than the tax levy. If your wealth keeps growing, you have more you can tax on. So if you need $1, and there's more to tax on, you can go to each person and get 80 cents instead of that full $1, because there's more there. And that's what Tuxedo Farms, the whole discussion about the revenue from Tuxedo Farms, it's all about increased assessments. And that will basically give us a bigger base to raise our money on. That's really, I don't know if, Jeff, you want to speak to, again, our goals with the budget was to not touch the $2.5 million. Hopefully, that money will start coming as soon as a year from now.
He means the $2.5 million from the Tuxedo Farms project. And again, this budget still keeps us on the road to the top 100. We're maintaining the existing programs, including the AAS literacy and numeracy teachers that we added, the STEM teacher, because we want to have a STEM certification both in the elementary school, and we believe in the STEM process. We're trying to get academic rigor. The transition to the 6th grade to the middle school model, we're going to do that next year to make a more rigorous academic instructional program for the kids in the 6th grade. We're going to be introducing a new elementary math program next year that's both New York State Next Gen compliant, as well as compliant with the national NCTM standards, the National Council on Teachers of Math. We are going to be implementing the Yale Ruler Social Emotional Learning Model. We're going to expand the to get the certification at the elementary school for STEM. We had heard about a phonics need at the elementary level, so we're going to be addressing that. We're going to maintain our 1-to-1 student-to-computer ratio. We're going to be increasing athletic opportunities. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, and the athletic director is here to back me up on that one. And also, we're going to continue the high school schedule that you just heard about. We're still enhancing technology, cybersecurity, and disaster recovery. There, as we mentioned, there's an IPA, which is an installment purchase agreement, which is a fancy word for capital lease, where we're going to be purchasing things to continue to strengthen our network and also keep us safe from a cyber attack. So that's in there as well. We're going to provide effective and relevant professional development. We're going to continue this budget with the zero-based process. We're going to get better at it every year. That's a multi-year process. And you remember, we're implementing that $1.4 million energy performance that's reflected in this budget. And as Anthony said, we're staying well within the New York State property tax cap. So those are the benefits that are included in the budget.
Any questions?
Anthony and Jeff, thank you very much for your hard work on this budget. I think it continues to be forward-looking with not cutting anything from the students in the classrooms, but it's keeping in line with being good stewards of our capital that it's coming from our taxpayers. So thank you.
Thank you.
Can we go to the slide with the 192,000 of savings?
Sure.
That one, right?
Yep.
So you kind of went through that okay, but just to play devil's advocate a bit and to be a budget dove, I understand you said the state reimbursement for the UPK, postponing teachers' computers for a year if they're okay with that. But some of the other stuff, even though they're smaller amounts, is anything getting cut from these savings? Is a program getting cut? We keep saying no sports teams are getting cut, but I want to make clear.
No, actually,
anything
Gary,
else?
we're going to be increasing athletic opportunities, and I'm going to get Marco in a minute. We're going to be talking about that.
But just we were so
no.
clear to say teams aren't, but just for that whole page, is there any program, any facet that a student touches either in or out of the classroom that we're postponing or cutting?
No, and remember the one cut there, we had 10,000 in there, so we're paring it back. It didn't exist last year.
That line
Yeah.
you explained, but I'm just making sure.
No, I don't believe there's anything in there that's going to have a detrimental impact.
No,
On
no,
the
nothing that
educational
increases
program.
class sizes.
So
and again,
a student can say, I was in X class, tutoring, sports team, after-school activity, and now it's cut.
Well, Gary, we may.
If it doesn't exist for different reasons.
We may combine, a couple of clubs, because we had a list of clubs that exceeded the number of students we have. So we may combine, for example, as Anthony mentioned, the engineering and robotics may be combined. But I don't think that's going to have a negative impact on kids.
I'm not counting that. That's not a
Yeah,
cut to me.
I think we're going to do things like that. We're going to do things like that.
Okay.
We may
Yeah, making
cut,
sure.
the club may not run the whole year, it may run part of the year.
Right.
So,
and even
but
those
yeah.
supply cuts, it's in central office, and I hate to say the Board of Ed.
Yes, thank you for your generous donation of the reductions from your budget as well.
The other thing too on the clubs and activities, a lot of times, most times, all times, we leave money on the table at the
Right.
end of the year. So there's it's very likely that we'll have excess money at the end. So it was crafted in a way that we would cover the kids that we have, and there wouldn't be a cut. It just, so that was a question that the audit committee was really on, and making sure that we didn't impact the instructional part.
Right.
But I do want to, I mean, those kind of taking the savings up front in so many words, we would have spent a little less in the co-curricular code. I'm going to provide to the board in the next meeting just how much in the past we got out of the budget each year, how much was unspent. I just know that this budget is not going to have that much unspent. It's going to be tighter and tighter and tighter, and that's what's that's one of the squeezes we're dealing with here. So, yes, I mean, these are removed from the classroom. We can definitely handle it this year. As you go into next year, new business official and everything else, just realize when those new requests come, it's really got to be, is it in the budget? Because it's going to be a tight budget.
Yeah.
We're not going to have the ability to do things that are not planned a year in advance or so.
And we are looking forward to Tuxedo Farms joining the district because, we still are using some appropriated fund balance. Last year, we did a great job reducing that significantly. We had hoped to reduce that over a 2-year period. This year, obviously, the state was generous with everybody except for the wealthier districts, so we didn't get, like I mentioned, some of our neighbors got $30 million a year additional money in perpetuity, and we got, what, $19,000, so.
Right. And
At
as a
some
percentage
point.
of their budget, it was like 6 and 7%.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah.
So at some point, we have to address that appropriated funds issue. We did work last year, we hope to do some this year, but we can't. So hopefully next year and the year after, we'll address that
For a
more.
person who's watched this over the last 10 years, it's the lowest it's been in the history of the school, so
Yeah.
it's well done. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
congratulations,
What's the lowest?
the appropriated fund balance.
Yeah, and again, for the, for people that don't deal with this every day, it's the difference between, your standard of living and your annual income, right? So if you have to tap your savings to make your standard of living work, then obviously you need to either get more savings, your goal is to live off of your income. And that's the same with the district. So we can't quite live within the income, so we have to hit the reserves. We have to hit the long-term savings account. Still healthy, still, actually in the state says you can't have more than 4%, so we're at that level. So it's not like we have a huge fund balance. It's not like we, I'm setting up a flare saying, the sky is falling. I'm just saying we really need to kind of wean off of that, and this wasn't the year we could do that. So it's, I'm kind of trying to championing something that's not the taxpayers and not the students, kind of just a long-range economic standing. And we're in good shape, and we've, obviously, when the comptroller looked at us, we are in a strong position, but those are the kind of things that business officials worry about.
Yep. Other questions? Comments, concerns? Everybody okay with this? Yeah? Anthony, thank you, sir. Great work.
Okay, now we're at the superintendent's report.
Okay, and I've spoken about it quite a bit, so I'm gonna say it now. On the agenda tonight is an athletic participation agreement with Suffern Schools, and I have to commend Mr. Margada over there, our athletic director. He has been busy organizing athletic opportunities. He's been looking everywhere for opportunities, and he's identified one at Suffern, and there's another one upcoming with Burke High School as well, Marco, so that we can expand our athletic offerings to students. So great work, and Marco, would you please give him a little bit more detail?
Sure. So just to give everyone an idea, one of the things that kind of hits kind of close to home with me in terms of giving kids an opportunity, and I could reference a couple different scenarios, whatever, but I think Mr. Castrigo knows this one specifically. A couple years ago, we had 6 seniors that could have played varsity baseball that won a section title as freshmen, and I felt that, we had to do more to get those kids an opportunity to play. So that's kind of been my motivating piece in terms of getting kids to play and finding opportunities out there, reaching out to other schools and seeing if we can combine to get numbers. Because obviously we have the desire, and after COVID, it was a struggle to get kids out there to play. But I think if we can find ways to get kids an opportunity, get them out there to play, it'll kind of snowball, and we can kind of build off that. So with those 2 opportunities, our modified softball team didn't have the numbers. Burke Catholic had numbers, but they didn't have a schedule, so it was kind of a good fit. So we were able to kind of come up with an agreement, and hopefully we'll finalize that piece and then be able to have the kids participate in games, albeit with Burke, and we'll see how that goes from there. And then on the baseball side of it, we reached out to Suffern to see if they had some players that weren't able to make their teams, to see if they can fit on our team. I know Section 1 works a little different than Section 9, so there's a little bit longer of a process. They started later. I think they started last week in March, so it's kind of been tied up a little bit, but we'll get through that, and I think we'll have an opportunity for the kids to play.
Great work.
Section 1 is Rockland County, Section 9 is Orange County, right?
Yes.
Okay. And do we need to vote on that tonight, Marco?
It would definitely help speed up the process, yes.
Yeah, it's on the agenda.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
Marco, thanks. Great work.
good work.
All right, it's a very busy time of year. Our guidance office is busy compiling data for next year's schedule. Our special education department's conducting their annual reviews. The work is going on the yearbooks at both schools. Teacher evaluations are being conducted by the principals. Teachers and principals are preparing for all of the upcoming state testing. And a letter was sent out by the principals to encourage parents, please take the test. Have the students take the test. We need the data. It's the only way we can improve is if we have solid benchmarks. And if we don't have all the students taking the test, it skews all of the data, and we're unable to do as good a job as we can to see how is our instruction, how is our schedule doing, how is, so we need this data. So we really are encouraging parents, please have the students take the test.
Yeah, it's not testing the student.
No.
It's testing us.
Correct. Yeah, there's no impact on the student whatsoever. It'll have no impact on their grades. They won't put them in some track or anything like that. It's for us to know how we're doing. So again, please do that. GGM held its pre-K orientation on Friday the 14th. That went very well, right, Mrs. Terlecki? We're anticipating as many as 20 youngsters joining us in September, right? Right. Very, very interested, right? That's great. That's outstanding. On April 18th, the George F. Baker High School hosted the First Cut Film Festival. The festival was shown our work of our students in drama and video production. We also had North Rockland, Suffern, and Monroe Woodbury. The festival included short films, movie trailers, commercials, animations, and more from all of our students. The students prepared some great work, and I want to thank the diligence of Mr. Chan and Mrs. Castellanos, among others, for the great work. It was really a nice show. Don't you think, Gary, you were there?
Excellent.
Yeah, terrific, terrific work. So our work on the elementary math curriculum adoption continues. We're going to hopefully have something for the board at the reorg meeting for next year. So once the board approves that, we will order the materials. We may have some summer curriculum work going on, and next year we're going to have a lot of professional development to support the teachers in math. Again, math is one of the weakest points in any elementary school anywhere in the United States. So we really want to shore that up because that's the foundation into middle and high school. So we're taking this very seriously. This is a very strong component of our educational program. So, and which is why we supported doing, and I know, Dan, you were a big proponent of this as well, an AIS numeracy person last year. So we're really trying to stress mathematics. And work continues on our $1.4 million energy performance contract, the EPC. We're on schedule to complete that work. It's going to save us quite a bit of money in energy, and we're already feeling some of the heat in the buildings as they wrap the pipes and they put the building management system in. Some of the rooms right now we have to recalibrate because it's like a spa. So it's moving along nicely. So with that, that's the end of my report for this evening. Any questions, comments, or concerns about anything? Anything? We're good?
Okay, good. Now we'll move on to the consent agenda. Before we proceed, would anybody like to pull anything out of the consent agenda?
6.5.
6.5, let me just make sure we get that one right. That's the adoption of the budget. That's what you want to pull out? Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, ayes have it. That leaves us with one item, which would be the budget. Go ahead, Dan.
So we have a motion
Discuss.
for
Discuss,
discussion.
all right. We have a motion to discuss 6.5.
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Go ahead, Dan.
Great. Thanks, Mr. President. I went back and I looked at the process from last year. There were emails going back and forth with the budget in it 3 different options that we were discussing, solicitation from board members on, what they wanted to do, add, detract. And I missed that this year, not having that back and forth. There were some things that, that I would have liked to have seen, especially if you looked at the last copy of the state newspaper that we get. It talked about the need for more guidance counselor, social service kind of work in the elementary school settings. I know when we used to have Miss V, was her name, was a guidance counselor in the elementary school. She had a program called the Banana Splits. And what that was is that was a program for any kids that were from a split home to come and have discussions. There was some issues with some of the 4th grade girls that was very tough. And she had those 4th grade girls come in every once in a while and kind of discuss and talk about. So I would have liked to have had an opportunity to maybe make a case to talk about doing something in that. And I never feel, as of, at 12:30 or 1 o'clock today, I still hadn't gotten the final, budget to go line by line and look through. I appreciate how much work goes into doing this. I know I did some, some quick math. We're at 2.86, right? And on $14 million, 0.13% still keep us under 3, and add $190,000 that might have been used for that guidance counselor or some of these other programs, and still kept us in a palatable spot. I also, again, have some issues with some of the consultant spending that we're doing. But, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the process and say I appreciate everything that went into it. And, I will vote in favor of it.
So let me just say that we're adopting a budget, and the voters will vote on the expenditures. They're not voting on a tax rate. They're not voting on a tax levy. They're voting on the expenditure number. Just because that's the number doesn't mean that we're not going to continue to look for savings throughout the year. And if we identify them, and one of the things you mentioned about the counselor, we've been discussing that internally to find a way to fund that. So it doesn't mean it's dead. It just means that we're going to try to find some savings to try to make that happen. Great. But we did want to stay within the confines of what the board gave us. And originally, that was the 3.1 levy. And then when we got up-to-date information from the assessors, which we started working on Monday, we didn't want the community to get hit with sticker shock. So, but I do appreciate that. And we have, next year, we're always improving. Hopefully, we're getting better with the zero-based budgeting. I hope everybody was happy with all the detail they got. And we can certainly, look at amending the process next year to be a little bit more participatory if you feel it should be.
Yeah, it's a good point, too, while we're on this subject. Why don't you take everybody through the challenges going forward about trying to keep tax levies and rates stable because of the variable?
Yeah.
Why this May 1st number is a big deal. Why don't you try
Yeah, and it's a hardship really for the assessors that we ask them, please get us this information to us as quickly as possible. This is going to be a problem for Tuxedo especially going forward, because we have to time the development of Tuxedo Farms just right. So we have to increase our levy and look at our tax rate and understand where the assessments and the equalization rate are going all at the same time. So we got to fly this plane in such a way, and we're flying partially in the blind. But what we want to do is we want to keep taxes low and stable. And as the assessments increase, if we don't have that information, we could potentially give an artificially low tax rate, and then we get a bunch of money that we could have spent on, say, facility work or program work, and we could have kept a little bit higher, but a steady tax rate, still low. So timing is so important here.
In other words, we would get more assessments before the kids. So we want to make sure that we capture those dollars and time them for when the kids are coming. So we're going to have to really understand that, and understanding these assessments is going to be critical.
And as you see, the,
Otherwise, we're going to have tax and levies going like this.
right, and we don't want peaks and troughs. But again, it's a hardship for the assessors. So we're going to have to muddle our way through this, and we may have some hiccups along the way, but we just have to be prepared and do the best we can.
Now, on this, on the adoption here, do you want me to read this proposition that's here? Be it resolved, since we already,
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, let me read the proposition. I'm assuming there's more discussion. Be it resolved that the Board of Education approves the 2023-2024 budget in the amount of $14,629.00 to be submitted to the qualified voters for a vote at the annual meeting, budget vote, and election on May 16th, 2023. The Board of Education approved the tax report card for 2023-2024 in the format specified under Part 170.11 of the regulations of the Commissioner of Education, and authorizes such property tax report card to be submitted to the Commissioner of Education in the manner required by law. Do I have a motion to approve? Do I have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ms. Colgan, we're all set, right? Okay. With that said, we go to new business, right? Discussion. And this is the area that we're going to talk about. All right. Do we have any items for discussion, I guess?
It could be under this or new business, but we kept talking about all the special people we have coming in the short-term contracts. I just wanted to put it out to everybody. We talked about getting some reports of how they're doing, money saved, how long, do we need more or less of this person, but do we want that monthly, quarterly? So just to kind of give Jeff a heads up, what, as a board, how often do we want that?
Gary, I was going to do, like we did a presentation tonight, I was going to have a presentation just on that. And I think we also have to define what a consultant is, because some people may not understand, the public, education's very complex, very complicated. Some of the folks we get through BOCES, some folks might consider them consultants, some may not.
That's why I didn't use that word, actually.
Yeah.
Because it's the broadest categories is what I think we're.
You want the broadest
Because
category,
it's not
okay.
just budget implications for next year, but it's personnel issues. It's,
Correct.
Are things overlapped? Are there gaps?
It could
So
also
it's
be
all those things.
also potential savings, too.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think this is where we left it last time, and correct me if we're wrong. He's going to get it up. Do you have a month next meeting?
I'm getting through the budget, and we got to get this math project. I will get it to you soon.
I just wanted to make sure we didn't forget
Yeah,
about
we'll do it.
Whatever deadline.
We'll do it. I think you'll like what you see. I think you'll be
And then
satisfied.
what we can do as a group, you could make a decision, do you want a monthly report? You
Yeah,
could-
okay.
You
That's
could
the
make a
first one,
decision
right.
there.
Yeah.
All right, good, very good. All right, do we have, this is the next area.
By the way, just so we all know, all the consultants that are approved are generally on the agenda, and we all approve them. BOCES is a separate service, but I don't want anyone to think that the board didn't approve anything, because they were approved. We're not passing anything by without letting the board know
He's just asking
about
a
it.
question.
Yeah, no, I know that. I'm not saying this about you, Gary. I just want to make sure the people watching, education is very complicated, complex. I don't want them to get any misunderstandings,
Yeah.
okay?
He's just asking a question. It's a-
Because
Yeah.
I don't know if we need more or less.
Yes.
Or like, I don't know.
Yes,
That's why I'm asking.
We've spoken. I know what you mean, exactly.
I'm looking for the savings. That's what I'm looking for. All right, anything else on any other areas for discussion? All right, let's go to new business, and we do have some new business, so go ahead, Mr. White.
I think the area, I'm going to rely on Mr. Margada. You want to talk about that? The
Well, I
Burke?
think he did.
Yeah, we spoke
Oh,
about,
that's right, he did. That's the new business.
but Burke and Suffern are two different.
Correct. So you want,
basically the same agreement?
It's in the package.
I think, yeah. I saw.
Okay,
You want, do we do this as one proposition, or we do them as separate?
They're listed separately.
2.
All right, so the first one we'll do I have a motion to approve Burke Catholic softball merger?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. All right. The next one is the resolution for the modified, Tuxedo modified baseball merger with Suffren. Do I have a motion to approve that one?
So moved.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I just want to point out that I think both of these agreements are great, but we need to look at, and I know we are, but for the public, we're hoping to expand this into other areas as well, whether it's before school, weekend, nighttime, other
And
activities.
social,
Right,
social and
right.
community.
So not just sports, but anything else we can
Yeah, right?
boost our numbers.
Yeah, go ahead.
So just so you're aware, I have another relationship with another school, a private school, about 15, 20 minutes away, Green Meadow. And they're similar in size and grade levels and everything, and we've been working together to try to formulate some kind of partnership so that in the future, if need be, we can combine with them, and they're the same size as us, the student body's roughly the same. We had them come for a couple of visits just to meet the kids and kind of interact, and I think that's a good step in that direction to make it something that's sustainable throughout the years, so I'm working on that.
Hey, also, thank you for your work on this. This is great.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Jeff, you want to say anything before we move on?
Marco?
All right, we're at our public.
I just want to just mention Marco is going to be honored at a dinner from the Mid-Hudson School Study Council. I'll give you more information about that, anyone who wants to attend. Okay?
All right, I'm not missing anything, right? We're going right to public comment?
Public comment, yep.
All right, we now will move into public comment. Do we have anybody who would like to make a public comment? Okay, if not, I'd like to ask for a motion to move into executive session. We have one item, I believe. Should be fairly crisp. We'll be out.
So moved.
Okay.
Are we going to take
Second.
action?
I'm just thinking,
Yes, we may be taking action after the executive session. Yep.
all right, we got a motion to approve. Got a
What's
second?
based on what?
It's litigate,
Oh, it's,
Litigation.
Litigation,
okay,
yeah.
just, for the record.
yeah.
We have a legit purpose.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
This is my fault. Thank you. Opposed? I'm feeling great now. I don't know what happened. hold on a second. Could I have a motion to return to executive session?
Public session.
Public sessions, excuse me?
So moved.
We have not taken any action, and do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second? All right, good meeting, thank you very much.
Aye.
Nice job.
Thank you, everybody.